I do want to start with the PlayStation news. The last couple of, I want to say, dating back to 2024, and I say PlayStation had an ideology that was cemented by Jim Ryan before he was, well, sent packing, so to speak. And that ideology was to get their studios involved in the games as a service development process. This is not something that you can do easily. It takes a lot of development time. It takes a lot of dedication. More importantly, it takes extreme patience. And patience, unfortunately, for Sony is not something that they have, because out of the 12 games that were announced by Jim Ryan in active development, 9 of those 12 games have now been canceled. There are 3 left. Fair Games by Jade Raymond's studio, which I have a feeling that is going to be the next one to go, simply because it was a very unappealing, payday-looking type of game, and we never saw gameplay. All we saw was basically a CG, introduction, and it very much resembled Payday. It did have some GTA Online elements to it, a little bit, so I don't know if that is going to be worth, putting or investing more money into. Unfortunately, I can see that game closing down as well. That's unfortunate for PlayStation, because that would be number 10. And interestingly enough, where did this all start? Infinite Umbra. This started with the abysmal explosion of Concord. And we know that because Jeff Grubb on his podcast this past weekend talked directly about that. And that implosion literally shook PlayStation to its core, where they were reevaluating what they were doing regarding games as a service. And well, now here is the result. Again, Fair Games is still around. Bungie is working on something, and I don't know what the third title could possibly be, but I can tell you right now that having 9 of 12 games canceled in the last, 14 months, give or take, because we're almost, we're halfway through January, actually 3/4 through January, so we'll be starting February. That's not a really good look. What that ultimately does and says, Infinite Umbra, is it is wasted millions upon millions upon millions of development dollars wasted. And now these studios have to reset. I don't know, man. Let's get your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to the conversation we were having this past week on the Infinite podcast, as well as the Fix, where you just have to be honest. And this is not some console warring thing. It's just the honest to God's truth that very clearly Sony has been mismanaged, or at least been mismanaging this project here of the live service games. I said this when they first showed it, and I think many of us were like, huh? When they showed off all these games that's going live service, and they announced that they're doing 12 of them. It's like, why? Most of them are going to fail. There's a waste of your money, a waste of your consumers' time, because you could be working on the games they want from you. All of it just made no sense whatsoever. And now look at them. 9 games canceled. Some studios closed permanently. People without work now, and no games to show for it. And that's hundreds of millions of dollars right there down the drain. That's not even counting Concord.
Right.
Close to what upwards of 400 at the least, at most guesses and such, or insider knowledge. So that's, I mean, if you're adding all of it up, I would imagine it's coming close to, the upwards of this, 4, 5, 700. So I say 700 to 800 million, if not more, possibly. Like it's a lot of money lost right there. I can't imagine. A lot of people call for Phil's head. I've had this discussion with people. They're like, "Oh, Phil need to go," and I'm like, hey, "Listen, him saving Xbox goes a long way with me. I can't explain it for anybody else, but I don't know what Herman Holtz did to earn longevity necessarily. I feel like if you do this and you cost me, hundreds of millions of dollars, I'm gonna be like Ghost of Yote and say sayonara. You're gonna have to go." Yeah.
Yeah.
I just don't see how anybody can have such a monumental failure and still be welcomed in. This is why I knew that, and I think this is why many of us knew that Jim Ryan was ultimately let go. They don't want to say it, but to me, I feel like there's smoke, there's fire, and this was his baby essentially, right? Because he could only coast off Sean Layden's work for so long, and this right here was basically his direction. Herman Holt's, I guess, failure was Concord because he was like, "Oh, that's going to be the next Star Wars for us," right? That both have shown that they had, a lack of proper vision, and you can only lead to mismanagement when you have so many things that went wrong, and you have so many games that now have closed down because of it. And some people might argue, well, how is it mismanagement? They just didn't want these games to go through, so they canceled it. Well, you had other games, right? You had Naughty Dog working on The Last of Us. You can't argue that, they just closed it down. No, they didn't like what they saw. We saw the reports. We saw that they had Bungie look into it, and Bungie was like, nope. While Bungie is going through problems with themselves. It's like it's ridiculous. It's a circus in a way. And let's just be honest, this will go away. This talk of this situation will go away as soon as Ghost of Yotei drops for Sony. Microsoft only wish the press would be so nice to them because you remember they chirped on a whole what was that name of that dang game?
Well, hold on. We have a couple of points here. I want to just bring up real quick. So Andy K, thank you for the reminder. He says that one of the 12 games was Helldivers 2. That is a success. So thank you so much. That is the 12th game that I could not figure out. Shout out to you, Andy K, for that. And also, I know I'm saying it right. I don't like saying it because I know it's slang for something else. But the Gina in the chat, of course, says, remember when Scalebound closed? The shouts of mismanagement were very heavy, but 9 closed and crickets from the same people. And of course, the G. Thank you so much for that. I'm not going to repeat what the name is, but please continue on, bro.
That's funny because that's exactly what I was about to say. Scalebound, if you all remember, they harped on that on Microsoft,
dude, for months,
for years.
I didn't even say years. I think you're onto something,
like literally. So he's right on that, and that's what exactly like he took the words right out of my mouth. But they harped on that for a long time, and I think any failure or misstep that Microsoft tends to make, they are held much more responsible than Sony is.
Yeah.
But like, imagine again, let's shift spots. Put this over there on Microsoft side. They'd be doom glooming us into, to the Doom Slayer. Like, oh, it's over with. Doom, rip and tear until it's done. And then they would have thought that Xbox, they wrapped it up, right? So I think you have to be fair when it comes to this and call it what it is. And it's a failure on Sony's side on not only just properly, I guess, picking the direction they needed to go, because I think again, when we all heard 12 live service, I think all of us scoffed at that number. Like all of us,
of course.
Like, why would you do 12? Like it made no sense. And again, I've seen diehard, stable-born hooligans complain about the 12 the 12 live service games. Like I've seen them when it was announced, they were like, "Oh, this is terrible." They gave the shows worse critiques than I did. So, like, I know they didn't like that, and I think sometimes when we say it because we're more of the Xbox side, so people are like, "Oh, shut up, Bob, you don't know." Yeah, but just be real. Like, just be real with yourself. Nobody wanted a bunch of live service games. I did a podcast that was shout out to Hargeet. I did a podcast that was titled it "Boom Out of Gas."
Oh, that's a freaking phenomenal title, dude. You should do a video. Oh my god,
I could have. I was one of the podcasts me and Danny did for the fix. I put Out of Gas, and it had Concord's one of the Concord characters, the guy with the little mohawk or whatever, and he was looking distressed. And it had all these different live service games that have failed over time, right? All falling around them, the logos and such. I thought it was pretty clever. I don't know. I thought I did some good work.
I think it's brilliant. Shout out once again to Jinner, because that's how it's pronounced, not the other way.
Jenner.
Jenner
Jenner.
He says pause. It's pronounced like ginger, but without the second G. Not a
yeah. I haven't talked to Jenna in a while. It's been a while. And
Oh
he was on
my
a
God.
podcast
My
with him way
apologies,
back.
kind sir.
Yeah.
That was a good laugh. That
I
was
didn't know who you
definitely.
were talking about when you said that. I'm like, somebody called themselves Gina? I'm like, okay. That's
So it's
different.
Jenner. Well, welcome to the program, Jenner. Thank you
Welcome,
so much for the
Caitlyn Jenner.
commentary.
Yeah, welcome, Caitlyn Jenner. No, but yeah, like just to wrap it up, like I said, most of our Hoof brothers, a lot of them had issues with this. Like the writing to me was on the wall, and we are seeing more fallout of that.
Yeah.
Now, with the whole situation. Now we just found out, of course, that they canceled the Horizon game with NC Soft.
Which nobody asked for that.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, who's asking for this? And by the way, why with her? I'm not trying to trash her, but like, yeah. I don't know any people like, man, I need some more Aloy. I don't know why they got so much faith in Aloy. Like, can anybody tell me?
Well, if you remember, guys, the artwork originally leaked on what the characters were going to look like. It looked like Fortnite with Horizon. That's just what it looked like. That's just not. Nobody asked for that, and that ultimately is a problem. We have Hargeet Chani in the chat who's going to be joining us on Thursday. I'll send you the link for. We're going to be sitting down to watch, of course, live the Xbox developer direct, but he'll be on tomorrow night's primetime gaming, where he asks a good question here. At what point is Herman getting axed? Well, we're gonna go into that into more details, because we have come to a point where, folks, again, it's go to Double Barrel Gaming. You're gonna see that it's already been loaded up for tomorrow. It's basically titled "PlayStation has no games," and that's what it is. They just don't have games. Except for Xbox games, which apparently are going over there in abundance. But I mean, at least they have something. We're going to get into that tomorrow night. Any final thoughts, or theories as to how far this puts back first-party development for what they're known for, Umbra?
I mean, if we're being real, just look at that, right? Like, I don't think you're going to get any new IP. And I mean, I guess you could have said, "Well, the Ghost of Your Time," but it's not. It's a Ghost, it's a Ghost franchise, so it's not new IP. It's a new game,
new characters, yes,
new character, new era, game,
yes,
new game in the series, should I say? But it's not a new IP. But let's just say brand new single player story focused games. I don't think PlayStation is going to have that until next gen. At least the AAA type. So they're going to have to rely on money heading for the rest of this gen. That's what it looks like. Now, to be fair, we don't know everything they have in cooking right now, to be fair. So I can't say that with 100% certainty, but all I can imagine is that most of the stuff outside of, I think I would even say Intergalactic is going, before that actually drops, it'll be what, 2 or 3 more years from now. So, I mean, at the earliest, you'll probably get Intergalactic is a new IP, by the way, to give them credit. But that might drop in about 2 or 3 years. That might be the last game, first party game for them of that last year for the last gen of this gen, should I say, before they move to the PS6. So I don't know. I think most other games they have are 5 or 6 years out, if we're being honest, depending on the size of what they might, try to go for.
Well, look, I'll put it to this way. It's an interesting theory. One of the things that I think the direction they're going to go on, simply because, look, the interview with Shu the other day with Greg Miller, Jamie, was a phenomenal interview. I absolutely love Shuhei Yoshida. He's one of my favorite executives at no longer with PlayStation. Gentleman of a human being. And I don't know him personally, but you can tell the way he conducts himself. Everyone that actually knows him, that talks about him, has super high praise. And of course, unfortunately, my channel's too small. I'm never going to come across his path. But it was a really good interview, and I think it was purposeful. Why do I say that? I'm not saying that he said what he said to bring smoke to PlayStation or to enlighten what their future plans are going to be. But he did say something incredibly interesting that really lines up with what's going on with PlayStation. They had all of their studios making games as a service titles. 9 of 12 have failed, have been canceled, right? The one that has done really well for them, Helldivers 2. So there are 2 left, right? There are Fair Games, and then of course there's what Bungie's working on. So there are your 12. The one that's Bungie, the one that Bungie is working on apparently has been in development nightmare for years. Fair Games, we've heard nothing about. We've seen nothing. We've heard nothing. So as talented as Jade Raymond is as a leader, and I really do like her work when she was with Ubisoft, this is a potential of another closure of a game, potentially even a studio, because they're very small. Yes, they're owned by Sony, but they're still a small studio. So Shuhei Yoshida, if you folks remember, really focused on this. If you want first party new IP, you have to support PlayStation by buying remasters on console and PC. That he said that, folks. I'm not making it up. Go watch the interview for yourself. That's a terrible precedent, because what he's ultimately saying is that they don't have the development dollars to invest in new IP without doing this remaster plan. And I think ultimately that is a problem. But Jamie, I want to be laser focused on this Horizon game by NC Software. Again, not a first party development studio, but still a first party IP that has now been canceled. 9 of 12 games canceled. 1 did very well for them, still doing a bit well for them. 2 were kind of questioning. Sony, I'm going to be honest with you, folks, I think they're in a pickle, and I think first party is years away from recovering. Let's get your thoughts.
It's wild because, if you go back a few years ago, it was people that wanted like Microsoft to stop making live service games, and Sony were just putting out single player games, and the tides have turned now. But I think the main reason Sony shifted to that is because Microsoft, even though they have less consoles out there, they still make a crap ton of money, and they have a wide range of live service games that make money throughout the entire year. Call of Duty with battle passes and microtransactions. Hell, Minecraft has skin packs that are literally sold every single day. Gears of War has live service elements. Forza, live service elements. Hell, Flight Simulator, you can buy individual planes. So the list goes on and on. With Sony, they don't really have that. They release a game, let's say in February. They get the bulk of the sales in February, and then that, the bell curve starts going down, and they don't really make much money for the rest of the year off that one game. And it's not like 15 years ago or something where a lot of these games had multiplayer modes where they subsidized the cost of the game and the multiplayer with map packs. So Sony hasn't had that. They've had Helldivers last year. They have MLB The Show, and I'm not necessarily sure that as a live service that makes a ton of money. So Sony really wants that one game that's going to make a ton of money. Look at when the FTC thing was going on. Sony was absolutely terrified that Call of Duty would be removed from the platform because Call of Duty, third-party sales make a lot of money for Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo. They are the best-selling games every single year. And Sony, they knew that. They want to have a live service game that pops, and they haven't had success. And like Umber said before, Microsoft wishes they had the leeway with the media that Sony had. Because think about this. Concord was the biggest video game flop of all time.
Since E.T.
Yeah, bigger than E.T. Bigger than E.T. E.T. has a literal landfill in the US where they've made documentaries about it. They found a freaking UFO. Right, it's an urban legend that turned out to be true. And Concord, think about this. Concord has a TV episode on Secret Level, on the Amazon show. Yep. The TV adaptation outlived the video game.
Yeah, you know what? We're laughing, but you're on to some. I never heard anyone actually equate that, but that is a phenomenal point. There you go. Yeah.
And look, Sony, what happened? They cancelled Concord. They said, hey, we're going to shut this off in 2 weeks. And everyone was like, this is the worst thing ever. It's the biggest video game flop of all time. And then what happened? Everyone forgot that game existed because they released Astro Bot a week later. They got away with it. right? They literally got away with it. And like now people are starting to open their eyes because it's like game after game after game getting cancelled. Like having Jade Raymond on a multiplayer game seems like a waste to me. I don't know why you do that after like the talent she had over at Ubisoft and all the games she worked on. But I think in the live service space we have now, it's a very tricky time because like you have Call of Duty. Nobody's taken the crown from Call of Duty. Remember that game called X Defiant? It's shutting down in June, right? Overwatch, Marvel Rivals struck gold. Free to play, tons of Marvel characters at launch. I think it was like 30 characters or something. People resonate with the third person gameplay. It's popular. I think, keep trying to chase trends just isn't going to work anymore. Right? Nobody's making a Fortnite clone because it won't work. Nobody's making a PUBG clone because it won't work. Same with Battlefield, although Battlefield has its own mess. But like, I think, I don't want to say the live service bubble has broken, but these companies keep trying to make these live service games based on things that we've already played. It's not going to work. How many times have we heard in the past decade, hey, we have this live service game planned and we have a 10-year plan? Division.
Yes.
Each one's had problems. Anthem. Literally, by the way, this still annoys me about Anthem. The developers forgot that they left up the Christmas lights, and the Christmas lights were up in the main city in Anthem till March. Right? They forgot. What else? Oh, yeah, the Avengers game, right? 10-year plan, free expansions forever. Didn't happen. And, like, Sony, they clearly want this money, right? Destiny has its problems. They have Marathon coming out this year, apparently. Like, look, I'm looking forward to Marathon, by the way, but do you have any idea how niche an extraction game is and how hard that is to explain to people what that is, right? And a Battle Royale, you just, try and survive. That's it. An extraction game, whole other kettle of fish, right? So, like, I think Sony, they are in a pickle. And, people will listen to this, and if the, PlayStation-centric, they're going to think we're just being fanboys. But look, every single time Microsoft messes up, we all say they've messed up. Every single time. People have to come out and say, Sony, they've messed up time and time again. And just because they've put out really great games in the past doesn't mean they can get so much leeway. How many games can they get cancelled over and over and over again? Like Blue Point Studios, they're going to have to work from scratch on a new game. That's 4, 5, 6, 7 years till we see their next game, which hasn't even started development yet because they only found out the other day that their game was cancelled. It's a messy situation. I think that Sony pivoting towards live service games just was never going to pan out. Look at Microsoft, right? They are heavily leaning towards single player. Heavily. Every game they have announced, single player. And if there is multiplayer in that game, I guarantee you there's a campaign. I think that Sony, they've messed up. And, Sony, they make weird decisions. Even their single player stuff, it's not perfect. Look at Days Gone. Sold over 10 million copies, brand new IP, and they didn't make a sequel. Why? Because of Metacritic scores. They didn't pay attention to the fans wanting a sequel because of Metacritic scores. It's a travesty. Like, the people that are running Sony at the minute, they aren't the Sony that we used to know 20 years ago.
Nope.
And Sony may never get back to how they used to be. But I think the main problem is people aren't vocal enough at all. People will praise Sony over everything. Look at, I just had a look on Twitter, right? When the PlayStation 5 Pro was announced, Jeff Keighley made 14 tweets.
14 of them. Yeah, I saw you talking about that. I remember that. It was unbelievable. Like, literally, he was selling the PS5 Pro.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I just checked. How many tweets did he make about the Switch 2?
0. Oh, wow. Oh, shocking.
Yeah.
I was going to say 0.
Yeah. And, like, look, we all know that Sony could literally, I'm trying not to swear here, but like Sony could literally get away with murder at this point. They can get away with anything. And people will be like, oh, they've sold 60 million consoles and, they make bangers. It's like, who cares? Right? They're not putting out the games people want. I think, ideally, PlayStation will get back to making single-player games. But will they get to doing that? Because they need a live service game that's going to make money for them year-round. And will they lean into things like SOCOM, which I think would be perfect for that because we don't have a third-person military shooter. Not really like that. I don't know. I just think Sony, they need to They need to drastically shift what they're doing, and they need to be honest with the fans, because Sony, like I always complain that Phil Spencer talks too much, but I think Sony, they don't talk enough at all. They need to let their gamers know what's happening. What's the roadmap, right? People will reply to every single tweet I post saying, "I can't wait to play this on PlayStation 5 Pro," and I'm like posting about an Xbox game. But like, where's the roadmap for PlayStation? Where? We don't know anything. We know that that Intergalactic game is coming at some point. We know a Wolverine game is coming at some point. We don't know anything. We just know that live service games are being shut down, and that an MMO just got shut down today that we heard of. It's a weird situation for PlayStation. Is it doom and gloom for PlayStation? Is it the end? No, but I think people have to actually, be real with the situation and deal with it, because like we can't just go around saying, "Oh, it's going to be fine because they have bangers." I've checked the replies to my tweets today. "Oh, this is good news that they've cancelled these games."
Yes.
No,
I saw
because you have
that.
to wait 5 to 6 years for their next games. It's crazy. Like 2030. That sounds ridiculous if you think about it, but that's the reality. 2030, 2032, 2031. PlayStation 6, PlayStation 6 Pro, right? That's when these games come out. And I think just Sony, they need to maybe get new management, change things up.
Oh,
So
I could see a change happening before March.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, they cannot continue to spiral out of control like this. I'm sorry, they just can't.
Yeah, I think Sony can get the feedback on track, but at this point, I can't see it happening. They're leaning too far into live service games.